Hey, welcome to the show, Total Financial Solutions, Safer Money Hour. I'm Arif Halaby along with a special guest today. You'll get to him in just a second. But folks, it's a special edition of the Total Financial Hour, specifically because of the craziness, if you will, the tragedy, the crimes, the thing that's really hitting every one of our hearts in Santa Clarita today is the shooting in Las Vegas. And why did it happen, right? That's on everybody's mind, and everybody has an answer and a solution, and we think we're going to run to the gun control angle, or we're going to run to this angle, or mental health, or whatever it might be. I want you to take a deep breath and pause for a minute. Special guest is David Haig, pastor of Grace Baptist Church. David is with us. I asked him to come on, and you're so gracious, so thank you for doing so.
Yeah, anytime. Love being with you and your listeners.
You can follow David Haig in The Signal. He has an article every week talking about moral dilemmas and ethical questions and just life lessons. So it's nice to learn a little bit about the other side of what sometimes we don't get in the media, right? The media is generally sensational this, sensational that, and it's nice to get some peace of mind. But Pastor Haig, tell me what you understand so far that's happened, because I understand some folks that attend church, and I guess in full disclosure, I also go to Grace Baptist for 7, 8, 9, 18 years, something like that. So I've been there for just a bit.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, when the news broke, we started getting calls from folks who knew that we had people from Grace Baptist Church that had gone to Las Vegas for whatever reason to go to that concert or for vacation, and we had a couple of people who were associated with our church that actually got shot, and it made it very personal.
Yes, it did.
Now, both of them, in the providence of God, are fine. Obviously, you're not fine if you get shot, but they are released, and they're going to be healthy. Obviously, it's an obstacle they have to overcome, but their families are very, very thankful that they're still alive, and they're going to be able to pursue life as it's meant to be pursued. So we're thankful as well. Well,
there's a question in everybody's mind and hearts. Some of you might know that have followed our show for some time. I guess we've been on coming up on 14 years. That my first career was a Los Angeles police officer for almost 11 years, going through the riots and the earthquakes. And I can tell you, when there was such a absence of God in the middle of the riots, that's what I can say. We saw people right in front of us. They had no fear of law enforcement, and they had no fear of God. And we were sitting there thinking, why is it that these folks are right in front of us stealing and hurting folks without any conscience? And I think that's the same thing that's happening today.
Yeah, we look for answers, and unfortunately, we keep setting bad records. This massacre now is the worst massacre in American history. It was just a year ago in Florida where they set another record. We have now bested that one. What a horrible record to have. 58 people at this point, or 59, have already died.
It's one of the places that the immediate go-to is, I think, talking about gun control, right? We're not going to get down those conversations, but I think that Americans and people in general look for answers. They just look for a reason or an answer so that they can put it in a box, put it away, and just call it even.
I think there's two ways to look at this. One of them's not very good, and that's the idea of an explanation. We need an explanation. And what's wrong is that sometimes people want to explain it away. What we really need to do is explain it in a way that causes us to think deeply about the real situations in life, the fact that evil exists.
Boy, does it.
It exists, and you can't expect a life that is completely devoid of tragedy, of challenge, of surprise, of evil, because it's all around us.
So here's a big question that we go through as we're trying to heal through this process. I think there's a missing link that folks really are looking for, which is an answer or a reason. And evil exists from a religious perspective. It's because we think there's the original sin, right? There's sin on earth. Every man, including myself and Pastor Haig and others, probably every one of you listening, commit mistakes, sin, problems every single day. But why is it? What keeps us from doing that level of sin? From a spiritual level, where and why don't we commit that level of of egregious sin. I mean, we commit little things, right? You don't always stop at the stoplight. You might fudge your taxes a little bit. Where's the line?
Well, as a theologian, we answer that question with regard to God. And, you got to start there. Unfortunately, when evil hits like this, one of the first things people say is, well, where was God? And I always consider it ironic that people don't think about God. They don't believe in God. They don't practically decide that they want to live their life before the face of God in a way that he commends. Yet when evil comes, they say, where was God? In fact, some people believe that the presence of evil is the number one reason to reject the notion that God even exists. But actually, ironically, Arif, the very presence of evil means that there has to be some absolute standard by
exactly
which
right.
evil and good are distinguished.
That's exactly right.
And so, I would say, a lot of people say, well, why did God let this happen? And one of my responses is often, well, okay, if you want God to make evil impossible, who gets to decide which evil?
That's right.
Do you tell a young 25-year-old man, unmarried, who wants to have as much sexual relations as he can, that God is now going to make that no longer possible? And so we get into all these philosophical questions. I think that, as we go on to try and explain this, I want to make sure your listeners know that my heart is I don't want to explain it away, and I don't ever want to give an explanation for what happened that would in any way diminish the absolute terror that those people felt, that their families felt, that they will continue to feel, the pain of being hit, the pain of not being hit. I mean, this is a tragedy.
Yes.
And some people will take advantage of it. I think that there are those who in the political realm will take advantage of this. Others will take advantage of it to try and sue whoever put on the concert, whoever was supposed to be watching the hotel. I think it's tragic that anybody would try and take advantage of an evil display like we saw. But we still want to give some kind of understanding and explanation of it. Our minds desire that.
Here's one of the things that really, I think, gives me, I don't know if it's hope, or at least a level of explanation, and that is that people have a choice. No matter what, there is still a choice. This man made a choice, and it wasn't, he didn't just snap. I love it when people say, oh, he snapped. Okay, did he snap when? When he was loading up his car, when he was driving there, when he was undoing the first gun, when he was out of the case, when he was loading the second gun? When does the snapping occur? I think people just make a choice. Sometimes people make a choice to do wrong. Folks, listen, you make a choice. Not to go this extreme. I'm not comparing the two, but understand that there's a choice to do something wrong. And sometimes we choose that. And there's just no understanding. I mean, we've been hit hard. JP Construction, Mr. Fibbin passed away. Those that knew him knew he was a man, a gentleman, an amazing man who would give you anything in his life.
You mentioned just a little while ago, you asked the question, why do some people enter into that level of evil and some don't? Again, as a theologian, I would say that God controls our world through what we call common grace. He actually is holding back more evil than we actually see, and he does it, as you know, Arif, through government is one of the ways that is supposed to keep back evil. Law enforcement certainly is a mechanism of what we would call common grace, that is God's grace that is common to everyone. But another really big one we know is conscience. And so, as we train our children, as they grow up, we kind of program
yes, we do.
Their conscience to know that when you see someone, you say please and thank you. And when someone gives you a gift, you have gratitude and use certain manners at the table. And then your conscience also gets trained to know that, it's not good to steal an apple from the market. The reason we're up in arms that this man shot all those people is because it offends our conscience.
That's right.
But the fact is, there are many in our society, unfortunately, and I think there are going to be more and more, whose consciences get seared. And so the normal right and wrong no longer enters in, and they like that. They sear their conscience so that they can do things that are evil and still consider themselves right. That's why all these bombers and these terrorists, they actually think they're doing good.
You take a look at some of the ways we've raised our children to do good, to do right. Even sometimes, there's been sayings, to do as I say, not as I do, right? We've heard those growing up. But there are times when you see the conscience in the young man or the young woman, knowing that people stop at a stoplight and a stop sign at 2 o'clock in the morning when there isn't anybody around. Why do you stop at the stoplight? Because you're afraid that the police officer is right around the corner, he's going to give you a ticket? Or is there something in your heart that says you're supposed to stop at a stoplight? I've been to many countries, and I know you have as well, where stoplights are a mere suggestion. Lines in the road are just, graffiti, if you will. And yet in America, we seem to have a conscience that goes deeper. And where I see it missing is today, the generation that was if it's right for you, if it feels good, you do it, right? That generation from the 60s. They are now our politicians. They are now our tenured professors. They are now the speakers and the Pulitzer Prize authors, those that are out there giving an example of how life is supposed to be.
Well, if you go back in history, there was a time when everybody explained reality because God created it. And that pervaded society with the idea that if God created everything, then he gets to decide what's right and wrong. And then came along a man named Darwin who said, wait a minute, I can try and explain reality without God. Well, as soon as you take God out of the equation, then you don't have a moral principle for creation. And, the atheistic materialists of today, like Richard Dawkins, would tell you that there's no rhyme or reason to life, that there's no right or wrong, there's actually no evil because he can't believe in evil because he doesn't believe there's a standard like God. And consequently, generation after generation have come to the place where there's really no absolute truth.
That's right.
If it feels right, then it is right for me. We're seeing this in the last 5 years. We've seen more absurdity in the area of factual things than ever before. Now you've got someone saying, I was born one gender, but I'm another gender now because gender is fluid. My DNA may never change, but I can change. And we're being thrown into a world where, well, who's to say that this guy who shot people is evil?
It's exactly right. Why are you? Who says you get to judge that? I was speaking with somebody earlier who's very educated, with letters and after her name, and I said, look, there has been a waterfall of change that has come across the American society where just 4 years ago, both presidential candidates, Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State, President Obama running for his second term, everybody said marriage was between a man and a woman. Charles Schumer, just a few years ago, head of the Democrat Party in the Senate, said illegal aliens, we have to secure our border, we have to get rid of illegal aliens, and we have to go through this very harsh terms. Pull it up, you can see it. Where all of a sudden the world has changed in such a very short period of time. And I think it's rocking American culture.
And in some ways, the situation that we just saw and continue to cry about, really, literally,
yes,
in Las Vegas, in some ways, I'm not saying there's anything good about it, but one of the things we ought to admit is that it forces us to remember that there are some things that are just plain wrong. That it's just plain wrong to shoot all those people. Yeah. It's just plain wrong to bring 10 automatic weapons into a hotel and load them and continue to shoot. That's just wrong. So there must be some sense of absolute truth that we must recover. I think in my dealings with good people in our society, they're beginning to think that freedom is now defined as the elimination of all constraint.
Yes.
Of all restraint, that you can't press your ideas on me, you can't press your morality on me. Everybody gets to be their own moral standard. But when that happens, suddenly there is no moral standard.
That's right. Where is the line? I think, folks, there has to be somebody else who tells us what to do. I love it when I decided to start my own business and people said things, hey, good, now you don't have any bosses. I said, oh my gosh, I have more bosses than ever. I have 2,000 clients, right? So my bosses are my clients, and I even work for my staff to make sure that they, are paid and make sure the electric bill is paid. All of those things. It's the same thing in your life. Just because you have freedom and you're in the United States doesn't mean you don't have somebody you're accountable to.
Yeah, I tell my students, I teach at the Master's University, and I tell my students all the time, you thought that when you escaped high school and your parents' house and came to college that you'd be free, but now you've got all these professors, you've got dorm rules, and you think, once I get out and get into the marketplace, then I'll be free. Oh, no.
Right.
Then you've got managers, supervisors, and you say, well, if I own my own company. No, now you have federal regulations and auditors. You see, God determined, I believe, that freedom happens when we are within constraints, freedom within rules.
That is
what happens.
Probably the best example of how Americans who are so free and yet at the same time still have to have an accountability to. And look, both my faith and yours are Christianity, and I'm not saying you have to be that way. Forgive me, no. But when we were a society where there were people that were Quakers and Mormons and evangelical Christians and Buddhists and Muslims, as a society, as a secular society, we still have to have somebody we answer to, whether you think the universe is going to be there for you or you think Hinduism is the answer, whatever it might be. When you have somebody or something that holds you accountable, I think we live better, and I think we are much more comfortable with the non-answer of why this happened.
Absolutely. We all have to answer to some authority. And in October, as those who are historians know, we're going to celebrate at the end of this month the 500th anniversary of what was known as the Reformation. And it all really started with a monk named Martin Luther who said, wait a minute, I've got the Bible telling me one thing, that only God can forgive sins. And then I have the medieval church saying, no, they can issue indulgences, pieces of paper that can forgive sins. And he was called to account for his writings before the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. And they laid his writings out in front of him, and they said, will you recant these? And he said, well, I can't, because my conscience is bound by God's word, not by the councils that have themselves proven to be in error. The real question continues to be that. What gets to decide, what gets to prime our conscience? It's kind of like an alarm clock. An alarm clock goes off and tells you it's time to get up. But the alarm clock will only go off at the time that you set. So we, as a nation, we have to make sure that we are setting our consciences according to something. And for me, that's God's word. That's the Bible. And some people think it's archaic, but I believe that everything we need to understand God and to live for Him is found there.
The sensationalist will always poke, prod, dig, point towards the areas of problems, if you will, that are very heart-wrenching. Mm-hmm. Sandy Hook, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Maria, Irma, right? You get the idea? Well, this Las Vegas shooting is no different. San Bernardino is no different. But understand, folks, we are number 110 in the industrialized world and in the world. 110 out of, let me give you the whole number. I want to say it's going to be closer to 200 and change countries in the world. So 110 out of 186. 110 out of 186. That means there's 109 countries where murder, mass murder, difficult to absorb tragedies are occurring. So understand some perspective. When the politicians and the ne'er-do-wells in life see this as their opportunity to come out and become something, go look at the facts. Look at the bludgeoning deaths and the stabbings in Great Britain where there aren't very many guns at all. And they can supersede the United States per capita. You realize, you understand that? More people are killed in Great Britain with guns and knives and bludgeoning instruments than you even think, and you don't hear about it. So I want some perspective and I want some understanding for our listeners, because I think most people want to try to find an answer. And sometimes the answer is, well, the media is going to make it a big deal. Certainly not this. I'm not saying this. But understand, you guys, that the nation is lost. There's a missing component. When suddenly, and this is, my opinion, not Dave's, of course, he's a guest, so when it's okay one day to say, a male, you can walk into any female bathroom, when for 200 years we had it completely different. As long as you feel like you're a male. In other words, your feelings are more important than anything else. When suddenly I can shut down any conversation you want, any disagreement by labeling you a racist, a homophobe, a exophobe, phobe, or I can say that it's hate speech, and immediately I am now entitled, by calling hate speech, I am entitled to use violence to shut you down. The society, the culture as a whole is missing something.
You know, it's really interesting. As our kids are growing up, we really try and talk to them about the dangers of peer pressure. That somehow, you know, all the influences around you are forcing you to go against what you know is right. But what we're seeing in our society, I think, and I'm not speaking for you, Arif, but I'm speaking for myself, that we have become a culture where the peer pressure, they rule.
Yep.
And yet we all know that internal conviction is always better than external compulsion. So if I believe that it's wrong to kill somebody, I don't need a law.
That's right.
But we have laws to make sure that everybody plays within the rules. But what would even be better is if we all decided that life matters and that I'm not going to be the kind of person who is going to take another person's life, unless, of course, it is judicially determined that this man has done that by his own choosing, which now brings about him the death penalty. But if I'm going to be the kind of man that I want to be, that I think God wants me to be, that I know my wife and my kids want me to be, then I'm going to deal with internal conviction, and I'm going to build some ethics and some values, and I'm going to walk according to those values. I'm going to stop at the light at 2 a.m., because it's who I want to be.
That's right.
And that's what we have, I think, in some ways, not lost, but we are in danger of losing it because there's this peer pressure that says whatever the majority says is right, which, by the way, this is what the majority is saying now. I have a right never to be offended.
That's right.
Okay, you can't, if you offend me, then we need to make a law against that.
One of the most incredible things I ever heard in my life was when somebody tried to shut down a conversation and said something like, well, you know, I'm offended. It came to me and said, I'm offended about what you said. And I said, okay. And that was it.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, but what are you going to do about it? I go, nothing. I can't control whether or not you're offended because 16 other people weren't. So if you're offended, that seems to be your problem, not mine.
And we need to get back and ask ourselves, why are we all offended that this guy shot over 500 people and killed at least 59 at this point? Why are we offended by that? Even if you haven't really studied ethics or philosophy, I would tell you that we all are born into this world with a sense of what is right and a sense of what is wrong. You don't have to teach a little kid how to steal. You don't have to teach them how to lie. But when they do it, they know it's wrong, and they are setting their conscience, and we help them set it in the right direction. And I just get back to it. I know I'm singing the same song over again, but America is losing its moral conscience in favor of a nobody gets offended society.
I think a lot of people forget the fact that it was customary and normal to say thank you. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. My wife and I went down and visited some friends down in Texas a few weeks ago. And at a restaurant, a young college lady, she's our server, and everything was yes, ma'am, no, sir. It was incredible to see the respect. A young man who was we were at the grocery store, went in and grabbed some stuff. Ma'am, can I help you? No, sir. And I thought, what an amazing thing, how maybe in their off hours they're jerks or whatever, but there is still a public persona, still a politeness, that is present in some places in the United States. And I think that's missing.
I'm kind of thankful of the amazing outrage that is going on for what happened in Las Vegas. I'm not thankful that it happened.
Yes.
But I am thankful that all over the country, the rank and file, people like you and me, who aren't in elected positions, who don't have to worry about, am I going to get votes from every sector in 2 years, we're rising up, I hope. We were in the Atlanta airport on Sunday on our way home from Florida, my wife and I, and there were about 30 soldiers all in their uniforms getting ready to get on a plane. And announcement came over the loudspeaker. It came over probably every 15 minutes, the mayor of Atlanta saying, we just welcome any of you that are in the armed services. And when that announcement got done, those of us who were standing around, we just started applauding these soldiers. You see, that's grassroots. That's not something that was legislated. that was a conscience, a series of consciences that had been trained to think, you know what, these guys are going out to, help other people in some of these ravaged lands, and we're proud of them. And the whole idea of being proud of our country comes from consciences that have been trained to think in terms of what is really right morally and what is wrong morally. And what happened in Las Vegas is wrong morally, and anybody who's going to try and take advantage of it to further their agenda or is going to try and deny that it was evil, they're both heading in the wrong direction.
Listen, I think the public shame, the self-shame is missing. I think people have no shame anymore. And that is driving us down a direction that is, I think, a dangerous place for the country. We're going to take a quick break, folks. You're welcome to give us a call at 298-5487, 298-5487. That's 298-KHTS. I'm Arif Halaby, special guest Pastor David Haig from Grace Baptist Church. You're listening to a special edition of Total Financial Solutions, the Total Financial Hour on AM 1220 KHTS.
Drugs or alcohol abuse can tear a family apart. In Santa Clarita, just like everywhere else, it's an epidemic. The Way Out Recovery is here to help. Call them now at 296-4444 or visit them on the web at thewayoutrocoveryscv.com. The Way Out offers outpatient treatment for adolescents, adults, and family members. The Way Out is compassionate, caring, professional, and confidential. You and your family don't have to suffer any longer. Call the Way Out Recovery now, 296-4444, or visit thewayoutrocoveryscv.com and make an appointment. Asking for help is the first step.
Pumpkins are back in Santa Clarita, just a short ride up Bouquet Canyon. Introducing the Gilchrist Farm Harvest Festival and Pumpkin Patch, with pumpkins, and more pumpkins. Open from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. daily in October, the festival is full of pony rides, farm animals, live entertainment, farm crafts, and pig races. Book your professional photo session in the Pumpkin Patch. Learn how to milk a goat, gather eggs, and best of all, pick your perfect Halloween pumpkin. Nostalgia's returned to Santa Clarita. It's now at Gilchrist Farm, gilchristfarm.com.
Tucked away in Canyon Country is an upscale, intimate, unforgettable dining experience. Taste the wonders of Italy at Piccola Trattoria. This gem of a restaurant is our valley's best-kept secret, but not for long. The secret will be out once you've tasted their homemade pastas, pizzas, ossobuco, or their scrumptious sausage, fresh seafood, or steaks. Better save room for dessert. Your table will be fighting over who gets the final bite of their heavenly tiramisu. Piccola Trattoria, off Sierra Highway on Dolan Way. Your unforgettable dining experience.
Find the perfect job for you at College of the Canyon's 2017 Job and Career Fair on the COC Valencia campus on Friday, October 6th from 9 a.m. till noon. The fair will feature businesses from a variety of industries looking to fill positions ranging from entry-level to management. While at the fair, meet with employers, visit KHTS's virtual job fair, and attend one of the many career-related workshops. Bring plenty of resumes and dress to impress. Visit cocjobfair.com for more information. That's cocjobfair.com.
At Advanced Audiology, we know how important hearing is to you, your loved ones, your work success, your safety, and your ability to stay in the game. Most people won't admit hearing loss to themselves or others. We make it easy for you. Today's digital hearing aids come in a variety of styles, including invisible. All feature-rich, providing unparalleled hearing quality, wearing comfort, and automation that simplifies your life. Don't be fooled by our imitators. There's only one Advanced Audiology with the purple sign next to AAA on Valencia Boulevard.
For the first time in our history, 50% off of everything in the store. It's the huge 40th anniversary sale going on now at a Royal Suite. Everything, yes, everything is on sale at 50% off. Bedrooms, dining rooms, living rooms, recliners, and Murphy beds all at 50% off. Even the huge selection of mattresses from Diamond and Englander. See the new line of adjustable beds at 50% off. Nothing will be held back. Everything from every manufacturer. Come early for the best selection. Everything 50% off at the big 40th anniversary sale at a Royal Suite in Centerpoint across from Sam's Club or at aroyalsuite.com.
Your hometown station, KHTS.
This is your place for news, talk, and information, your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Hey, welcome back to the show, Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. This is a special edition. I'm Arif Halaby, along with special guest, Pastor David Haig from Grace Baptist Church. And folks, we're just kind of talking about some of the answers, the craziness. Look, I understand you're going to feel that there's a little bit of a void, almost an emptiness. And Pastor Haig, tell me, why do you think the average, even if you don't go to church, even if you're not a church-going person, even if you're not even really a person of faith, there still is an emptiness? And you mentioned it earlier, something about a conscience. Can you expand on that?
Well, I think everybody who's heard about this is immediately, I hope, hurt by it. They're saying, wow, what kind of country do I live in? And then it gets closer and closer as you maybe know somebody who got shot or was there, or knows somebody that is shot, or maybe you're married to a first responder, or my son is a firefighter. But then eventually it gets down to, oh my goodness, do I want to go to a concert? Could this happen to me when I'm at the grocery store? There's a fear. And then we go to another stage is, why is this happening? We want someone to blame, and many times we blame God. And we fall into the myth that says, my life should be pain-free. But I got to tell you, Arif, none of us know anybody who has gone through life pain-free. This is a broken world. There is evil. Now, in my line as a theologian, I think it's built because sin entered into the world through Adam and Eve, and it's a virus that's gotten into the very operating system of our world. And any solution to the lone wolf shooter or maverick shooter or terrorism or anything, any solution to a broken marriage that can't deal with the root cause of sin in the heart, of selfishness, of self-centeredness, if you can't deal with the root, it doesn't matter what you do with the product.
Even 60, 70 years ago in the home, the father was a very important figure. I don't mean the abusive fathers, right? We all know those stories that you can point to as an exception to the rule. But having an influence in the family, it might have been the mother and a father. It could have been a family where the father had passed away, and it might have been somebody like an uncle that was there, or a grandfather. But there was a man influence in a family, and a female wife, if you will, or influence. It could have been two grandmothers. Somebody was raising you, and somebody had morals and values, and they told you, don't do that. Why? Because it's not right. Sometimes it was because I said so, and the authority, because she was grandmother or because he was father, was enough to carry I'm not going to do it. Growing up, the reason I never used drugs, never, was because I didn't want to disappoint my father. Because he told me the stuff that he went through to come to this country, and how hard it was. And for me to waste it on that, I was around it. I saw it in different places in high school, even in college. And I remember thinking, wow, if I do that, how disappointing my dad would feel.
I remember when I was in college, we had a really high-powered CEO from a company in Texas. His name was Bob Smith, believe it or not. And he came and he did a lecture on our campus, and he just asked this question: who do you want to live with? Do you want to live with someone who lies, meaning yourself?
Of course.
Do you want to live with someone who steals? Do you want to live with someone who only puts in 6 hours of an 8-hour job?
Yep.
And we all realized, wait a minute, this is my life. I am going to build my own reputation, my own character. So what kind of person do I want to be? And then for me, it went further, and I'd figured that out in high school. It went further to, I have a problem being who I want to be. Because there's part of me that always overwhelms my best intentions, my lusts, my greed, my pride, all of that selfishness. It overwhelms even my best intentions. I don't even live up to my best standards, much less someone else's. And I realized I needed help. And for me, I went to the Bible and I learned about sin. And then I learned that God said, you know what? Sin's going to ruin your life, but I can ruin sin. I can overwhelm it. And I did, through Jesus Christ, who died in your place. And if you commit your life to him and follow him, you'll find joy even in darkness, because you'll realize that this life's just a prelude to the next. And you're going to be able to deal with the evil of this world, knowing that one day Jesus Christ is going to come back and he's going to change everything. We're going to live in a new world, even above the possibility of sin and its consequences. So there's my little gospel blurb.
That's it. That's the message of hope. One of the things that I always thought of before I became a Christian was how feelings mattered, right? How much I would operate under feelings and being happy. And you gave a sermon, and you don't even know this, of course. I've never even shared this with you. In fact, I don't know if anybody knows this, but now all of you will. There was a sermon at a moment in time, and we were late, kind of like always, coming to church. I don't know if you can see us come in there.
No,
but,
I don't
okay,
see
good.
you at all. Of course. I see everything.
I know, man, when you're speaking up at the top. And you gave a sermon on the difference between holiness and happiness. And which one do you want to strive for? Because happiness is a temporary thing. Happiness is something, right? It's the same thing with loneliness, right? You want to be lonely? Well, how about being happy with yourself? How about being holy with yourself? And you shared a conversation with somebody, I don't remember who it was, but how the difference between holiness and happiness. And if you strive for one, if you strive for holiness, happiness can come. If you're focused on happiness, rarely does holiness come.
Right. Happiness lies on the other side of holiness, because holiness has to do with being who God asks me to be. And, John Piper, who's one of my favorite authors, he puts it this way: you'll be most satisfied in your life when God is most glorified in your life. And I truly believe that. And it's not some myth, and it's not, someone once said to me, "Oh, Dave, for you, Christianity is a crutch." And I said, "No, it's not. It's a stretcher."
Yeah.
It carries me.
So a lot of us out there, even people of faith, I remember after 9/11, when I think Tom, you weren't at our church at that time, right?
No.
You were down south. Yeah, Tom Gibbons was the pastor. I remember 9/11 occurred, I think it was on a Monday. But when that happened, they held a midweek church service, and it was loaded with people, like it was an Easter service or Christmas Day. And there were just people hanging off the rafters. Because we look for answers, we look for a reason, we look for some sort of making sense. And at the end of the sermon, the answer was, it's not going to make sense. There's no way for it to make sense. And so I think the same thing happens with something like this, especially because it's so close to home. You could be 5 or 6 degrees of separation and understand that we know somebody who was injured or hurt. 2 folks just at our church alone were injured. And I think we are looking for the why, because science, academia, education has taught you to find the why, and that there's an answer for everything. And when there isn't, you feel like something's missing.
One of the most well-known passages in the Bible is Psalm 23. And they always, people use it at funerals or whatever. And part of it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'm not fearing evil because you're with me. It doesn't say you'll never go through that valley. It doesn't mean that your life will be pain-free. And this is why those of us who have a deep and abiding faith in God, which, by the way, is a reasoned faith, it's based on evidence, historical evidence, archaeological evidence, biblical evidence. We're not theological or intellectual lightweights, but we have a faith in God who has revealed himself to us. And what we know is that even in the midst of things like the Las Vegas shooting, and I'm sure there will be testimonies that come out of that from Christ followers who were there, who got shot even, and they will testify to the fact that even though I went through that, my heart had a sense of comfort and refuge because I know who made me, and I know that he's in charge of my life, and I know that I can trust him.
There was a young lady who was a bartender. You're not going to hear all these stories, of course. There was a young lady who was a bartender, and she's sitting there just about ready to swipe a gentleman's card, and the shooting, and everybody's running in, and the story basically goes that there was a man from Canada who was shot, and instead of running, she stopped, and she stood next to him and held his hand and basically was with him, whether he had passed just before or afterwards, but she never left. And then his phone was ringing from this man's girlfriend, and she was locked in a basement building of some sort over at the Tropicana Hotel. And she's sitting there and has to tell the girlfriend over the phone. She said, "Where is so-and-so?" Is he okay? No, he's not okay. And ultimately had to say that he had passed away. And she said, "I just wasn't going to leave him." And she stayed with him for 5 hours plus. You're going to hear stories. So why does a human being put themselves in risk like that? I told you, I was a policeman for almost 11 years. As a first responder, I can tell you my very first time, I'm 21 or 22 years old. There's a bank robbery on Ventura Boulevard. I can even tell you which bank it was. It was a City National Bank. Driving down, and the beep, beep, beep comes out, which indicates it's a high priority call. And it says, "Bank robbery in progress." I'm like, son of a gun, we're passing the bank as it's coming out. So my partner throws a U-turn, pulls up onto the sidewalk. We get out with our guns, and people are running out of the bank. And my partner's broadcasting. My job is just to keep my weapon, my firearm pointed at the door and kind of assess the situation. And I remember thinking, all right, we're here. Everything's fine. Somebody call the police. And then I went, oh, crud. We are the police. This is it. While everybody's running one direction, you folks, your first responders run the opposite. Yeah. We never could understand firefighters because there's a fire. We run out. They could never understand bank robberies because they would run out and we run in. So it was always a nice rivalry. But you have human beings that are of all walks of life, our service members, retired police officers, off-duty police officers who were there, everyday folks who had courage, who were standing there guiding and directing. Look for that as the hope.
And isn't it interesting that when tragedy strikes, it really brings out who we truly are? You know, and you were mentioning 9/11. We were in another city, but when that hit, our church was open every night of the week, and it was filled Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. By Friday, it dropped off. And that's the sad part, that when tragedy happens, we tend to think about things outside of ourselves, the transcendent. You know, what's life about? You know, why am I here? Where am I going? What's ahead? You know, what happens after death, if anything? But as soon as things kind of get back to normal, then we go back into our live just for today, live just for ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
And I think I hope that the things like the Las Vegas shooting, if there is to be any real learning from it, it's that, hey, you know what? These things happen, and they ought to remind us that life is fragile, that our lives will end. Why are we here? What are we doing with it? Do we love the people we say we love? Have we created an ethical value system in our lives so that we become the kind of people that we really want to be? I think it's a call to wake up. It's a call to look up. And for me, looking up means looking up to the God who created me and living in a way that pleases him.
A lot of folks are rushing to judgment in the weapons, firearms, rules, laws. Do you understand? The man already broke at least a half a dozen laws. Okay, so what? Do you think 6 more? Oh, no, this one law. Look, the progressive left has always wanted to creep in and make government larger. They want to do that with the healthcare deal. 1/6 of the world, of the U.S. economy is healthcare. They want to take it over and make it. They want to take over. Look, come back to reality. Look at statistics. Great Britain doesn't have as many firearms, right? Oh my gosh, it's very difficult. There are 6 times, that's 600% more murders, homicides in Great Britain from knives than there are in the United States, than there are there in gun violence. Do you understand? So it's the human condition, because what's the common denominator? It's the human being, the human condition. If there are more people killed by knives than guns in Great Britain, what do you think will happen in the United States if you took it away? You're going to ban moving vans? Are you going to ban pickup trucks? Because those run over people. You can kill more people. What if 6 people drove cars throughout the Route 91? What's the difference? It's the human condition that changes. You can call it whatever you want. Find a solace somewhere.
Yeah. You know, we mentioned before, in the aftermath of all of these massacres, and they're horrible, there are going to be people who take advantage of it. They're going to take advantage to further their own political agenda.
Yes.
Maybe even some would listen today and say, well, David, you're taking advantage of it to further your spiritual agenda. The difference is that I do this every week, every day, every weekend at Grace Baptist Church. We're opening God's Word, the Bible, and we're saying, look, we're calling our lives to this. This is nothing new. I'm just trying to offer some hope to those who are truly having their eyes open to the fact that, you know what, this is a dangerous world, and I need to make sure that I'm walking it in the right perspective. But you can't de-risk life. And even if you move to Montana and become a mountain man, you're not going to get outside of the reach of the brokenness of circumstance and tragedy in this world.
And when bad things happen, folks, it's always what we do to surround ourselves. Right, I don't even know if I shared with you like the healthcare stuff in our family the last 4 weeks. Yeah, so I'll share with you a little later. But we've basically been at the hospital just about every day in the last 4 weeks for one of 3 or 4 different family members. So it's been It's been a tragedy of personal, right, doing something. But when we come back, we're going to continue. See if we can finish up and wrap up this hour of the program with the Total Financial Hour. Special edition, how do we deal with, cope with, even understand on some level what happened in Las Vegas? Impacted a lot of you, didn't it? Right here in Santa Clarita. You're listening to your hometown station. I'm Arif Halaby with special guest, Pastor David Haig on KHTS. We'll be right back.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top-quality musicals and plays. Located in Old Town Newhall, the CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go to canyontheater.org.
Doing right starts right here. At Union Bank, community banking is at the heart of what we do. From giving customers more convenient access to their money to financing their homes here in the neighborhood, Union Bank believes in acting locally. We also believe that investing in local businesses helps everyone. For over 150 years, Union Bank has grown strong one community at a time. We live here, we do business here, and we're here for you. Stop by your local branch today to experience the strength of community banking. There are 3 Union Bank branches conveniently located in the Santa Clarita and Antelope Valley area. To find your nearest branch, visit unionbank.com. Loan subject to credit and collateral approval. Financing available for collateral located in California, Oregon, and Washington. Fees and restrictions may apply. Terms and conditions subject to change. MUFG Union Bank N.A. member FDIC equal housing lender. Union Bank is a registered trademark and brand name of MUFG Union Bank N.A.
With Facey Medical Group, good health is within your reach. Facey Doctors provide Santa Clarita's finest primary and specialist care at 4 convenient Santa Clarita locations. If you're looking for connected and convenient personal care, there's no better choice. Facey accepts most healthcare insurance, including plans offered through Covered California. For more information or to schedule an appointment, call 1-844-MY-FACEY. 1-844-MY-FACEY.
There are fun kids events at the Church on the Way Santa Clarita. 2 to 5-year-olds meet at the Arc Room on Fridays for toddler exercise time. New moms come to the Church on the Way Santa Clarita on Tuesdays for a new, free Moms Fellowship. Support, friendship, and social events for moms and their babies. Visit tcotwsc.org for these and other exciting events at the Church on the Way Santa Clarita on Cinema Drive or call 291-6000.
It's summertime party time. Have an office, birthday, bridal, or any party coming up? Flame & Skewers offers an excellent selection of tasty cuisine at reasonable prices. You gotta try it. We have healthy, fresh catering options for all your upcoming events. Visit our newest location in Granary Square, Valencia on McBean Parkway. Order online at flameandskewers.com or come in. Flame & Skewers, healthy, fresh Mediterranean food at its best.
Your hometown station.
Thanks for listening to your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Hey, welcome back, folks, as we finish up this hour of the program. Arif Halaby, along with special guest Pastor David Haig from Grace Baptist Church. We're trying to make sense of something that you can never really make sense of, right? It's this tragedy in Las Vegas and all of the tragedies. Things happen. And I think as a scientific, as an educated community, as an American that strives where knowledge is everywhere, right? Knowledge is no longer power. You've heard me say that before. Knowledge is power. That's a bunch of baloney. Because otherwise you'd all be kings and queens with your free Wi-Fi. Right, and your free phone or internet phone capacity. But instead, the proper use of the proper knowledge at the proper time. Now, that's always been there, but today knowledge is a dime a dozen. You can find out anything about anything. We used to have to send our kids away, right? You'd have a farm town, and we'd save up our money, and usually the oldest son, and you'd say, son, go find knowledge and bring it back. We'd check our watch, we'd wait 3, 4, 5 years, and poof, he'd return. And he would say, let me tell you what I found out. Today, knowledge comes to you. But don't mistake knowledge and wisdom. Don't mistake knowledge from the fact that just because you can now understand how wheat seeds grow or how the clouds form into rain or whatever it might be, that there still isn't a presence of something. I'm going to tell you it's God. I'm going to tell you it's Christ. You can believe whatever you want. But I think when that starts to void, Pastor Hegg, when we see communities doing everything they can to not even say the word of God, to not even talk about the afterlife or heaven or evil or hell, I think we go down a road of loneliness. I don't know if there's a better word for it.
Well, I just really want to put in a word for tolerance. I mean, the world in which we live says we will tolerate everything except for you who believe in God to the place where you want to live your life according to His pleasing. I just want to be tolerated. I'm not going to force anybody to believe what I believe, but I certainly want them to give me the opportunity to dialogue about it.
That's right.
To me, the word tolerance means you and I disagree, but I'm going to treat you agreeably. And we're going to live in the same community, and we're going to listen to each other, and we're going to respect one another's opinions. But increasingly, as a Christian leader, I'm feeling like I'm one of the minorities now.
That's right.
And I've just, you know what, if we're a minority, that's fine, but I want to be listened to, and I want to at least be valued enough as a person, as a thinker, as a dad, as a husband, and as a community leader, that people give me the opportunity to at least express my opinion and live according to my beliefs. Every once in a while, someone will say, well, you guys are trying to impress your morality on us. And I'm saying, well, yeah, but I don't want you to impress your immorality on me.
That's right. It's a two-way street, folks. When you talk about tolerance except, then you're not tolerant.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
It's like saying, I like everything except. Well, then you don't like everything, right? Just don't call it what it isn't. I never have a problem with disagreement, but I don't think you should call blue green or up down or, male female. I don't know. Your feelings are interesting. They're mildly interesting to me. But realize this. I come from a numbers background, right? So 1 + 1 is 2. Whether you feel like it's 6 or whether you're super passionate that it's 9, 1 + 1 is 2.
I think there's something we can all agree on, that the taking of the lives that we've seen and the infliction of pain on people who were there to listen to some music. They went for a good night with their families. There were little kids in strollers. And the fact that for almost 20 minutes, bullets were being sprayed into that crowd. I hope we can all agree on two things. Number one, that's evil. And number two, there's pain that's going to last a long, long time. We can all agree on that.
That's right.
And I'm just suggesting that the only way we put any of this into a perspective that is even mildly helpful is this. What are we going to do with that knowledge? Is it going to force us to run away from God, away from the transcendent, away from the religious tradition that has been unbroken throughout human history? Or are we going to run away from that and run into a bitterness, an anger, or a selfishness that really is self-destructive? That's the real question.
And a lot of folks are looking to find a little bit of peace, maybe some understanding, maybe just a way to cope. So Grace Baptist Church is open this Saturday at 5:30 and 7:10. My wife always says 7 o'clock, so we get there early.
No, you don't.
I know, not anymore. 5:30 and 7:10, and of course Sunday morning services as well, folks. I want to thank you for joining us, a special edition. You can always go to Facebook. Send us a message if you have a question. If you have a concern, you have a comment, we're happy to meet you. And Pastor Hegg, real quick, your phone number at church if someone has to.
Yeah,
has a
our
question.
phone number is 661-297-8737.
Yeah, trick question. Thanks for joining us, folks. And thanks again to Pastor David Hegg for coming on Total Financial Solutions, Total Financial Hour, but really our special edition about you being safe. Thanks for listening. Arif Halaby will be right back next hour.